Hello everyone and welcome to the Neutral Zone. I'm Gabbi Riggi. Joining me today is Kyle Levasseur and Matt Corso. Going to talk to you about the Quinnipiac men's and women's ice hockey. First, we're going to go to the team that played in Hampton this weekend, the men's team. They tied 2-2 with the tough Cornell team, and then on Saturday went on to defeat Colgate 6-3. Now, Kyle, one of the big key players in those games was Sam Ennis. Continued on his point-scoring streak, 11 games now for him with 6 games with a goal. Now we're seeing him put up the points a lot. Do you think he's going to hit the 200-point mark?
Well, Gabby, he had a huge weekend this weekend. 2 goals and 3 assists, a 5-point weekend. Like you said, 11 straight games with a point, 6 straight games with a goal. Will he get 200 points? I don't see it happening. That's one of the hardest challenges a player can face, reaching 200 points. The guy isn't Superman out there, but he is one of the best players in the league. He is one of only 24 players in Quinnipiac Division I history with 100 points, so that already is a feat, but doubling that is going to be pretty challenging. He had 43 points his freshman year, 39 points his sophomore year, and the season isn't even over yet, and he has 37 points. That's a total of 119. I don't see him getting another 81 points. I mean, if he does, he'll go down in the record books for sure. Something that I do want to point out, I do see him breaking the Quinnipiac Division I goal record held by David Marshall at 73 goals. Ennis right now has 65 goals in his career, so another 9 is going to break it. It might even happen this year, maybe sometime in the playoffs. If it doesn't, I definitely see it happening his senior year.
Yeah, absolutely, Kyle. Just going off a little bit of the eye test, I'm super inclined to agree with you. There are guys with higher points like Reed Cashman who hit 148, but I don't see it happening for Ennis. Now, moving on, we're going to look up to the playoffs. The Bobcats spend the next 2 weekends on the road playing some hard ECAC opponents. What do you think of those last 2 weeks of the schedule before they come back to Hampton for senior day, and what do you see kind of going forward in the playoff seeding?
Well, the next 4 games are on the road for the Bobcats. That's going to be a challenge, especially this weekend against 2 teams they've had some trouble against. They start off on Friday against St. Lawrence, a team they tied 0-0 earlier this year, and St. Lawrence has always given Quinnipiac some trouble. They snapped their unbeaten streak back in the 2012-2013 season, and then they've also beaten them a couple times in the years past. That's going to be a difficult game. If they can get past that, I think they're going to be rolling. But after that, they face Clarkson, whom they tied 1-1 earlier this year at home. That snapped their unbeaten streak, their winning streak this season. They also face RPI the weekend after that, whom they tied 2-2. So that's 3 teams they've tied. And then you've got Union, who, although they've beaten earlier this year, Union's not a bad team. They could surprise them. That's my trap game for them for the rest of the year. Union beat Boston University 5-3 this year. They beat Yale 2-1, and they've also got a good player whom MJ Baird and I had on our ECAC top 10 player rankings, Spencer Fu. He's a freshman with 12 goals and 13 assists on the year. Watch out for him in this game. And then also the last weekend of the year, they're going to be back at home facing Brown. That's a game they should win, except after that they're facing Yale, who has probably the hottest goalie in the league right now in Alex Lyon.
Yeah, absolutely, Kyle. I totally agree with you. St. Lawrence has been a tough team for them. They tied RPI. Clarkson's now back in the USCHO poll at number 20.
Yep.
It's not getting any easier from here on out, and once they hit the playoffs, they could get the bye, but it's certainly not going to get any easier.
Absolutely not, and especially the way they've been playing where they're digging themselves into these holes, it's going to be tough if they continue to do that to win these games.
Absolutely, Kyle. Well, thank you for joining us. Kyle Levasseur here. We're going to take a quick break and then come back with Matt Corso to talk some women's hockey. Stay right here.
I could really go for a Ray and Mike's sub right now.
Come to Ray and Mike's and try our Philly chicken and cheese for just over $4. Giant cheesesteak subs and mouth-watering boar's head sandwiches for as low as $4.75. Q-Cash accepted just a mile down the road on Whitney, here at Ray and Mike's. Good evening and welcome to Sports Pause.
In the end, we're here to win the championship this year.
Jess Fontaine now has that. She's going to take a ripper off the post, but she's going to come back.
And my number 1, hold your applause, Bobcats fans, is Quinnipiac.
All right, Victoria, you know what time it is. It's top 5 plays of the week.
My favorite time.
Welcome back to the Neutral Zone. Sitting alongside me is Matt Corso. Now, Matt, the women's team had a hard loss, 3-2 at Colgate, breaking one of their longer winning streaks and unbeaten streaks. Is that bad for the team, do you think? Is there anything they need to kind of adjust or need to come back with after that loss?
Well, like you said, a 21-game unbeaten streak and a 7-game win streak. Closing out the year right now, they have 4 more games against St. Lawrence, Clarkson, Union, and RPI. Stats show that when the women's team loses, they don't really lose again until a long time down the road. I like that Alicia Berry scored her first goal of the year. That shows some offense going into the end of the season. Turner netted another goal, and then you can't forget about Melissa Samuskevich and TTC Anfrano. So I think for this team to get back on track, they don't really need to do much. The offense was there. The problem was the defense. They still outshot Colgate 2-1. They allowed 3 goals on 18 shots, and I really think to push forward, they need to be more gritty around the net and get back and play a little more defense.
Yeah, I'm really inclined to agree with you. I don't think there's too much that has to be done. Their PK is probably one of their best facets. They're still a pretty disciplined team, so I'm inclined to agree that they don't really have to make too much of adjustment now. They're still at number 1 in the ECAC. It looks like they're going to host the first round of the tournament here, the ECAC tournament here. What does that mean for this program? What does this mean for this team?
Oh, I mean, it's huge for the team. I mean, I think if the season ended today or it ends when it ends, they're going to be the number 1 seed. It's Quinnipiac's conference to win. People would come support the women's team. They don't get the support that they deserve on this campus, and especially if it's on their home court in Hampden here, I think a lot of people will show up. They're looking to avenge their OT loss to Harvard last year in the ECAC tournament, and Harvard went on to win. We know that. And if the season ended today, it looks like Quinnipiac would be playing RPI, which should be a pretty easy win for them. They tied RPI earlier this year 0-0, but I mean, that was just an off game for them. I think they could see Colgate or Harvard in the semifinals, and I think they want to see Colgate. Even though Harvard won, they want to win against Colgate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think having the ECAC tournament come to Hampden is big for this program. There were a lot of question marks coming in with Cass Turner and the new staff, but you can see how well Amanda Mazzotto works with that defense and the goaltending, how well they work as a staff as a whole. I think it's good for them, too, in terms of recruitment. There are players who may come to Cornell, may come to Yale, and if they see that Hampden's now, the number 1 team, that kind of adds a little bit more allure to this program. But for me, I think it answers a lot of the questions that we had going into the season with Cass Turner at the helm.
Also, going back to this weekend coming up, when they have their game against Clarkson, I think that it's much better that they actually lost against Colgate because they need this game against Clarkson to show that their confidence is still at an all-time high heading into the final stretch of the season.
Absolutely. We saw a few years ago when Clarkson came to Hampden, won a national title here against Minnesota. They're not a team to play around with. So great stuff as always, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you.
For everyone here at the Neutral Zone, I'm Gabbi Riggi. Thank you for joining us.